Shalom Aleichem, Mishpachim, Boker Tov. I am coming to you with a continuation of the Torah readings for this week. We are in Vayeishev, and I am in the fourth Aliyah, the fourth Torah reading of Vayeishev. This is the book of Genesis, Bereishit. Let us begin. All right, there is Torah on top, Rashi on the bottom. Fourth reading. Chapter 38, verse 1. Let us begin. Judah stepped down from his position of leadership over his brothers at that time. He moved away from them and entered into a business partnership with a man from Adullam by the name of Hira. Verse 1. Rashi, at that time. Why is this section placed? Hold on. 1 second. Why is this section placed here, interrupting the subject of Joseph? It is to teach us that Judah's brothers demoted him from his prominent status when they saw their father's grief. They said to him, "You told us to sell Joseph. Had you told us to return him to our father, we would have listened to you." He moved away from his brothers, literally to a man from Adullam. He made a business partnership with him. Verse 2, Torah. Judah saw the daughter of a certain merchant there named Shua. He married her and engaged in marital relations with her. Verse 2, Rashi. Here means a merchant. Verse 3, Torah. She conceived and gave birth to a son, and Judah named him Er. She again conceived and gave birth to another son, and she named him Onan. Once more she gave birth to a son, and she named him Shelah. Verse 5, Rashi. He was in Keziv. This is the name of the place. I say that it was called Keziv, meaning ceasing, because she ceased giving birth there. It being of the same meaning as "you are to me like a failing spring, and whose water never ceases." For if not, what then is the verse coming to tell us? And in Bereishit Rabbah, I have seen the following. She called him Shelah, ceasing. Verse 6, Torah. Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Judah's firstborn, was evil in God's eyes, so God made him die. Verse 7, Rashi. Evil in God's eyes, with the same evil as Onan. He wasted his seed. This we know, since it says about Onan, God made him also die. Onan's death was for the same reason as Er's death. Why did Er waste his seed? So that Tamar should not become pregnant, and thus her beauty be impaired. Verse 8, Torah. Judah said to Onan, "Marry and engage in marital relations with your brother's wife, and thus fulfill the duty of the brother of a deceased husband to her. In this way you will produce offspring for your brother." Verse 8, Rashi. And produce offspring. The son will be called after the dead brother. Verse 9, Torah. Onan knew that the offspring would not be considered his, so when he engaged in marital relations with his late brother's wife, he let his seed go to waste on the ground, so as not to produce offspring for his brother. Verse 9, Rashi. He let his seed go to waste on the ground. He would thresh inside and let the seed scatter outside. Verse 10, Torah. What Onan did was evil in the eyes of God. God made him also die. Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house for another year, until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought, if he marries her, he too might die like his brothers did. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. Verse 11, Rashi. For he thought, in other words, he was holding her off with straw, an excuse. For it was not his intention to marry her to Shelah. for he thought he too might die. For of this woman it may be presumed that her husbands died prematurely. Verse 12. Torah, many days, a year or so passed, and Shua's daughter, Judah's wife, died. After Judah was consoled, he went up, together with Hira, his Adulamite friend, to Timnah, to supervise the shearers of his flock. Verse 12. Rashi, he went up over the shearers of his flock, means he went up to Timnah to supervise the shearers of his flock. Verse 13, Torah. Tamar was then told as follows, your father-in-law is now going up to Timnah to shear his flock. Verse 13, Rashi, is going up to Timnah. But about Samson, it says, Samson went down to Timnah. The reason is that it was situated on a mountain slope. From one side, one goes up to it, and from the other side, one goes down to it. Verse 14, Torah. So she took off her widow's garb, covered herself with a veil, wrapping it also around her face, so she would not be recognizable, and sat at the crossroads on the way up to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up, and yet she had not been given to him as a wife. Verse 14, Rashi, she wrapped herself, literally. She covered her face completely so that he would not recognize her. She sat literally at the opening of the gate, at the opening of the eyes. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Well, she sat literally at the opening of the eyes. Means at a place where eyes are opened, at the crossroads on the way to Timnah. But our rabbis explained it at the entrance of the tent of our forefather Abraham, with which all eyes hope to see. For she saw that Shelah had grown up. She therefore offered herself to Judah, because she desired to bear children descended from him. Verse 15, Torah. When Judah saw her, he mistook her for a prostitute, because she had covered her face. Verse 15, Rashi, he mistook her for a prostitute, because she was sitting at the crossroads, because she had covered her face, and thus he could not see her face and recognize her. But our rabbis explained, because she had covered her face, as implying when she had been in the house of her father-in-law Judah she was modest and kept her face covered, and therefore he did not now suspect that this woman could be her. Verse 16, Torah. He turned aside to her, going over to the road where she was sitting, and said, if you consent, please prepare yourself, and I will come to you. For he did not realize that she was his daughter-in-law. She replied, what will you give me as payment if you come to me? Verse 16, Rashi, he turned aside to her, to the road, means from the road on which he was. He turned aside to the road on which she was. In Old French, destoller, to turn aside. Please prepare yourself and your mind for this. Every term here is an expression of preparation, except where it is to be translated in the sense of giving, and even those meaning preparation are close in meaning to giving. Verse 17, and this is Torah. He said, I will send you a kid goat from the flock. And she replied, provided you give me a pledge for security until you send it. Verse 17, Rashi, means a pledge. Verse 18, Torah. He asked, what pledge should I give you? And she answered, your signet ring, your cloak, and the staff that is in your hand. He gave them to her and engaged in carnal relations with her, and she conceived from him. Verse 18, Rashi, your seal and your string. Onkelos translates this as your ring and your garment, the ring that you use as a seal and your garment with which you clothe yourself. And she conceived from him. The word here, literally to him, signifies that she conceived strong men like him and righteous men like him. Verse 20, Torah. Judah sent the kid goat with his friend, the Adulamite, in order to get the security pledge back from the woman. I'm sorry, did I read verse 19? Verse 19, Torah. She arose and left, took off her veil, and donned her widow's garb. Verse 20, Torah. Judah sent the kid goat with his friend, the Adulamite, in order to get the security pledge back from the woman. But he could not find her. He questioned the people of her area, saying, "Where is that prostitute who was at the crossroads by the wayside?" They replied, "There was no prostitute here." Verse 21, Rashi. This means a woman who is designated and prepared for prostitution. Verse 22, Torah. He returned to Judah and said, "I did not find her," and even the local people said there was no prostitute here. So Judah said, "Let her keep what I gave her as a pledge, lest we become the object of public scorn. Look, I did not send her this kid goat, but you did not find her." Verse 23, Rashi, literally, let her take for herself. Means, let what is in her possession remain hers, lest we become the object of scorn. If you continue looking for her, the matter will become publicized and will cause disgrace. For what more can I do to fulfill my word? Look, I did send her this kid goat, because Judah had deceived his father by means of a kid goat. For he dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. He too was deceived through a kid goat. I'm sorry, I misread this. When I read I did not send her this kid goat, I should have said I did send her this kid goat. Verse 24, Torah. Some 3 months went by, and Judah was informed as follows: Your daughter-in-law, Tamar, is guilty of licentiousness, the proof being that she is even visibly pregnant from it. Judah said, Bring her forth and have her burned. Verse 24, Rashi. Some 3 months, most of the first month, most of the last third month, and the complete middle month. The expression here means when the months came in a group of 3. The form here is thus similar to the verbal noun forms of with the sending of gifts, food gifts, and their plundering. Onkelos also translates it this way: she is pregnant from it. This is an adjective meaning pregnant, as in a pregnant woman, and similar in form to bright as the sun. And have her burned. Ephraim Machshah said in the name of Rabbi Meir, she was the daughter of Shem, who was a priest, and therefore they sentenced her to be burned. Verse 25, Torah. As she was being brought to be burned, she sent word to her father-in-law as follows: I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong. And she added, Whose signet ring, cloak, and staff are these? Please acknowledge that you are the father. Verse 25. Rashi, she was being brought to be burned. She sent word to her father-in-law. She did not wish to shame him by saying, I am pregnant by you. Rather, she said, I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong. She said to herself, if he admits it of his own accord, let him admit. But if not, let them burn me. But I will not put him to shame. From here, our rabbi said, it is better for a person to let himself be thrown into a fiery furnace than to put his fellow man to shame in public. Please acknowledge. The word here is an expression of entreaty. Please acknowledge your Creator and not cause the end of 3 lives. Verse 26. Torah. Judah recognized these items as being his. He said, she is correct. She is pregnant by me. She was justified in contriving to conceive by me, since I did not give her in marriage to my son Shelah as I had promised. He was never again intimate with her. Verse 26. Rashi. She is correct in her words. By me she is pregnant. And our rabbis of blessed memory interpreted this to mean that divine voice announced, "From me, and through me these things came about," because she was modest in her father-in-law's home. I decreed that the line of kings be descended from her, and I have also decreed to establish the line of kings in Israel from the tribe of Judah, since I did not give her. For this she acted correctly, because I did not give her to my son Shelah. Some say that this means he was not intimate with her again, while others say it means he did not cease being intimate with her. A similar case to this we find in connection with Eldad and Medad, which some translate as, "but they did not continue to prophesy." But Onkelos translates as, "and they did not cease to prophesy." Verse 27, Torah. As Tamar was giving birth, the midwife saw that there were twins in her womb. Verse 27, Rashi. At the time of her giving birth, but about Rebecca it says literally, her full term to give birth was completed. For there the months of pregnancy were complete, while here they were short of the full term. There were twins. Here the word twins is written in full, while there regarding Rebecca it is written without an aleph and a yud, because there one of them was wicked, whereas these twins were both righteous. Verse 28, Torah. While she was in labor, one of the babies stuck out his hand from the womb. The midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his hand to signify this one emerged first. Verse 28, Rashi. He gave a hand, literally. One of them stuck his hand outside, and after the midwife tied the scarlet thread around his hand, he withdrew it. Verse 29, Torah. But as soon as he withdrew his hand, his brother emerged, and his mother said, "With what vigor have you pushed yourself ahead?" So Judah named him Peretz, breaking through. 29. Rashi means you exerted a strong effort. Verse 30, Torah. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, emerged, and Judah named him Zerach, shining, meaning shining, after the scarlet thread. Verse 30, Rashi, who had the scarlet thread on his hand. There are 4 instances here of the word here, this one corresponding to the 4 forbidden spoils that Achan, a descendant of Zerach, violated. Others say that they correspond to the 4 articles that he took from the prohibited spoil of Jericho. A shinar cloak, 2 pieces of silver worth 200 shekels, and a bar of gold. And he named him Zerach, shining, on account of the shining appearance of the scarlet thread. And that was the 4th Aliyah, the 4th Torah reading of Vayikra, the portion of Vayikra. All right, let us read from the Daily Wisdom on the Parshiot by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. All right. What I just read was the 4th Aliyah, the 4th reading, which is chapter 38, 1 through 30, Genesis. After the sale of Joseph, his brother Judah left Hebron, married, and had 3 sons. When his first son died, Judah gave the widow in marriage to the second son. When the second son too died, Judah promised the widow Tamar that he would give her in marriage to the third son. But he never did, thinking that there was something about her that caused his first 2 sons to die. Tamar saw prophetically that she was destined to be the mother of Judah's descendants. So, seeing that Judah was not marrying her to his third son, and that Judah himself had been recently widowed, she disguised herself as a prostitute and seduced Judah. The title of this daily wisdom on the Parshiot is called Messianic Selflessness. He saw her and thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face while in his household. Posing as a prostitute was totally out of character for Tamar. for she was a paragon of modesty. Indeed, it was in virtue of this quality that God chose her to be the progenitor of the Davidic dynasty. Nonetheless, when she realized that all other options had been closed, she selflessly acted contrary to her nature for the sake of drawing forth the soul of the Messiah. Tamar's selflessness underscores the necessity for self-sacrifice and the selflessness that we must demonstrate in our efforts to hasten the messianic redemption. All right, and that is the daily wisdom on the Parshiot. All right, have a wonderful morning. Boker Tov.